Hello and welcome back to the Eyes of O Gaming channel for another older game review, or maybe a retrospective look if you prefer to call it that. So what are we investigating today? Well, fortunately, the mystery of which older game is getting a look with fresh eyes has already been solved. Of course, we're talking about Sherlock Holmes, Crimes and Punishment. This game released back in 2014 and was developed by Frogwares and published by Focus Entertainment. So what is Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishment, and is it worth it for the first-time player to pick up and try today? Well, we're going to dive into this one with the intention of answering the most important question asked in this review series. Is this one worth it for you? So sit back, grab yourself a tea, and let's find out. Okay, so what's the general plot or setting for Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishment? Well, I think it's safe to assume that everyone who's checking out this review is familiar with the character of Sherlock Holmes. But just for completeness, the 15-second description is that Sherlock Holmes is a fictional detective originally created by the author Arthur Conan Doyle in 1887. He's appeared in multiple different media outlets including books, movies, and games, and essentially is an extremely intelligent and quick-witted individual who's gifted with the ability to analyze a person, place, or thing and come to conclusions based on his analysis. So as you've likely been able to deduce from the character and the name of the game, Crimes and Punishment, you're going to be investigating crimes as the famous detective Sherlock Holmes. The game is set in 1894 and will have the player investigate 6 different cases, with some of those cases actually being very close adaptations of the original work by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle himself. So I'm going to start off by giving you some comparisons to give you an idea of what to expect. This game is actually part of a franchise and is going to feel similar to the other Sherlock Holmes games within the series. This one is actually the 7th game in the series to be released, and although I don't have much experience with the other games, from what I've seen it looks very similar to The Testament of Sherlock Holmes, which came out a couple of years earlier. However, Crimes and Punishments does seem to have a more updated look, as you would expect. Outside of the franchise, the first game that I thought of was LA Noire. The biggest similarity is, as you would probably guess, investigating crimes, gathering evidence, interviewing suspects or witnesses, and then coming to conclusions about what actually happened. It's not an open world like LA Noire though. Although you can explore a zone, there are clear boundaries and you must go through a travel cutscene to get from location to location. Typically you are allowed to choose where to go to continue your investigation, but those choices are limited to specific relevant locations to the investigation that you're currently working on. So basically your home, the police station, scene of the crime, and various other spots that come up during the investigation. Another title that I was reminded of, and that I have actually covered on the channel, is Call of Cthulhu. It plays out a little different, and obviously Cthulhu has supernatural elements where Sherlock is rooted in a more realistic setting, but the pacing, lack of standard game combat, and investigating your environment all have a similar feel. Also, with both titles being Focus Home games, they will have that Focus Home feel if you're familiar with that publisher. Now let's talk about game mechanics. This one is going to have 6 chapters, which is essentially just the different investigations you'll be conducting. The investigations themselves are self-contained storylines that you'll play through, and although there is some very loose connections throughout, each one plays out as their own little scenario for you to experience. As you play through your investigation, you'll need to gather clues as to what actually happened. This is done through interrogations or questioning witnesses, discovering objects, or even recreating some events or conducting experiments to see how things may have played out. Once you've unlocked clues, you can go to the deduction system where you need to connect the evidence and come to a conclusion. Be aware that there is some choice and problem solving here, so in other words, there isn't just one conclusion. If you connect the wrong evidence or make the incorrect deductions, you'll come to an incorrect conclusion. There isn't really any true combat system in the game. There are a couple of combat-like interactions, but they're essentially quick-time events requiring you to press a button within a specified time frame, or something to that effect. At the end of each scenario, you also need to choose your moral choice of condemning or absolving the suspect or suspects. This is really just a flavor mechanic. It will change your final rank, and the game tells you how many people made a similar choice, but it's really just up to you. It's not going to have a huge change to gameplay or the overall experience that you have. Graphics really aren't too bad by today's standards. I'd say they're fairly comparable with other games that released around the same time. There's not a lot of fast movement in the game, so they could put a lot more emphasis into making appealing and believable environments. The game takes place in around 1890s London, and so for the most part the locations will be fairly similar in style. However, they do offer a range of places to go. So you can expect to be in downtown London, a farm, tavern, or other zones to explore and gather clues in. The most unique feature that sets this one apart from other games that might have you gather clues or conduct investigations is the deduction mechanic. Connecting the different clues and coming to the conclusions on the case really makes you feel like Sherlock and gives you a unique style from comparable titles. Aside from that, just keep in mind that this is an exploration and clue gathering game, so it won't have a lot of the very typical or standard game concepts like running around, getting in firefights with suspects, as you would expect from something like an LA Noire that I compared to. This one is a slow-paced, casual style game. Each case is self-contained, so you don't really have to worry about remembering what you did previously once you start a new investigation. I do recommend starting an investigation if you know that you have at least an hour or so to play through the whole case, as if you put down the game for a while and try to come back, I think it'd be really easy to forget where you were or what you were doing, and therefore miss important pieces of the investigation. Sound effects in the game are really pretty standard with nothing stand out, and music is just for a little ambiance. When it comes to audio in the game, the dialogue is probably a high point, as it's done well and delivered well for the style of the game. I'll play some examples here so you can decide for yourself what you think.
I presume it was you who placed the order for the special wagon.
Yes. It was to transport my valuable prototype safely to London. My prototype is a revolutionary device. It is capable of producing electricity.
Stop, Holmes!
Is that you, Watson?
Yes, of course it is. And you almost killed me.
Nonsense. I was aiming for the vases.
Blindfolded?
Watson, quiet, please. I'm trying to concentrate. Ah, Lestrade. What is it this time?
Inspector Lestrade, when will you remove my husband's body? It's sacrilegious to leave him here like this.
As soon as we can, Mrs. Carey, I assure you. Allow me to introduce you to Mr. Sherlock Holmes. He's a detective. No doubt you've heard of him. I'll wait for you in front of the cabin, Mr. Holmes.
My condolences, Mrs. Carey.
Hello, hello, hello.
What is it, Lestrade?
It seems to me that someone has tried to force it, Mr. Holmes.
Okay, so far I've tried to stay mostly objective to give you a feel for what the game is, to see if you're interested in giving it a try. Now I'll just give my own opinion on it. So just be aware that not all games are for everyone, and really whether I liked it or not, doesn't mean that you will or you won't. It's all going to be very subjective to personal preferences and taste. As always, don't expect a number rating or something like that, because personally I think ratings are a waste of time for something like games or movies or anything that is really based just on preferences. Honestly, I really don't like that kind of ranking for things like this, and would be happy to see that arbitrary tradition in games dropped altogether. But anyway, did I enjoy Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishment, and is my friendly recommendation to give it a go or pass on it?
Indubitably!
I enjoyed this one. I thought it was a fun little investigation game. The stories are decent, nothing too revolutionary, but at the same time are entertaining enough to play through. The controls are a little stiff, but since it's a slow-paced game and you aren't really thrust into life or death situations, it's not really a big issue. Dialogue is done well and the environments have a very nice look to them. This one really comes down to whether or not you like the casual, slow-paced exploration style games. If you want action, this isn't it. But if you want to just sit down and have the interactive movie style Sherlock Holmes experience, I think this is a pretty faithful attempt at providing one. Now, just to make you aware, it is a short game. There's only 6 cases and only take about an hour or so to play through each, so it probably won't take you too long to get through this game. On top of that, once you played through it once, personally I don't really see why you would revisit it, as you already know what's coming up. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this look at Sherlock Holmes, Crimes and Punishments. Have you played the game already? Did you agree or disagree with my assessment? I would enjoy to read about your takes in the comments section as well. Please like the video if you found it entertaining or informative, and also consider subscribing to the channel. I make a variety of gaming content and would be very happy to have you join the community and direct the future of the channel. Otherwise, thank you so much for taking the time to watch today, and until next time, take care.